I'm 53 years old. For most of my life, I thought I had everything figured out. I believed that love had a season, a vibrant sun-drenched summer of life, and that mine had long since come and gone. I was married once to a good man. I had a beautiful daughter, who now has a life of her own. And for years, I built my world around the quiet, sturdy pillars of predictability. I kept things tidy, both inside my house and inside my heart. Love. That was something I had folded up carefully and put away with the winter coats, a memory to be cherished but no longer worn. But life, I've learned, has a strange and often startling way of shaking you loose right when you think you've settled for good. I never thought something like this could happen to me, but it did. And I'm telling you this story as a quiet warning, and perhaps as a surprising gentle hope. Please don't make the same mistake I did and assume that your story is already over before you've even read the final chapter. This is a story about being seen. It's about the shocking, terrifying, and beautiful discovery that even when you feel completely invisible to the world, someone might be looking at you all along. Before we step into the dusty, sunlit garage where everything changed, I want to invite you to join our community. If you believe in stories that explore the quiet, often overlooked moments that change our lives forever, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click that notification bell. It means the world to us and allows us to continue sharing these powerful true stories with you. It started on one of those heavy, humid Saturdays in early June, the kind of day where the air clings to your skin like a damp sheet, and every chore feels twice as exhausting. I'd been putting off cleaning out the garage for years, always with some convenient excuse. Next weekend, I'd say. After the holidays. Or when it's not so hot. But something inside me had stirred that morning. Maybe it was the way the early sun sliced through the blinds in my bedroom and landed on the stack of unopened boxes that had been sitting by the back door since my divorce 8 years ago. Maybe it was just time. Time to finally face the dust. I tied my graying brown hair up in a loose, messy bun, slipped on a pair of old paint-stained denim shorts and a faded tank top, and opened the large garage door with a loud, rusty creak that sounded like a groan of protest. Dust motes thick and ancient floated through the shafts of light, dancing in the still air like they had been waiting for years to be disturbed. I stood there for a long moment, my hands on my hips, the sheer scale of the task ahead of me feeling overwhelming. The garage wasn't just a place to park a car, it was a museum of a life I used to live. Boxes of my daughter's childhood toys, my ex-husband's forgotten tools, holiday decorations for a family that no longer gathered under my roof. I was trying to figure out where to even start. That's when I heard a voice from behind me, easy and clear. "Need a hand, Miss Caroline?" I turned and squinted into the bright sunlight. It was Josh, my neighbor's son. He was 23, maybe 24, home from college for the summer. He was tall, lean, and always had that half grin on his face, as if he were perpetually in on a joke that no one else had heard yet. I remembered when he was just a little boy, running around shirtless in the summer, with skinned knees and a bright blue popsicle always in his hand. Now he was a man. That simple, undeniable fact had started to settle into my awareness lately in the fleeting glimpses I'd catch of him washing his car or carrying in groceries for his mom. And it was a fact I never dared to linger on for too long. "Josh," I said, brushing a stray, sweaty strand of hair from my face. "You don't have to do that. I'm just making a mess out here." He stepped closer out of the glare of the sun and into the cool shadow of the garage, his hands tucked casually into the pockets of his cargo shorts. "I don't mind," he said. "My dad's gone fishing for the day, and I've got nothing else to do. Besides," he added, his grin widening a little, "I figure I owe you for all those chocolate chip cookies you used to sneak me when I was a kid." I laughed, a real genuine sound that caught me off guard. "That was a long time ago. All the more reason to finally pay you back," he said. And just like that, before I could protest any further, he grabbed a pair of dusty work gloves from a hook on the wall and started lifting a heavy box marked Xmas Decor. I wanted to stop him to insist that I was fine, that this was my mess to handle. But there was something oddly, profoundly comforting about not being alone in that moment, in that dusty mausoleum of my past. So I let him help. We worked side by side for hours, sorting, sweeping, and making easy, comfortable small talk. I found old photo albums, a rusted bicycle that had once belonged to my daughter, even a box of my ex-husband's woodworking tools I thought I had thrown out years ago. With each item, a memory surfaced, some sweet, some sharp with a forgotten pain. Josh didn't pry. He just listened. He would occasionally crack a joke to lighten the mood, or effortlessly lift something heavier than I could possibly manage. His youthful, easy presence made the heavy emotional job feel lighter somehow. At one point, I caught him watching me while I was wiping down an old metal shelving unit. It wasn't a boy's glance, not a flirtatious or appraising look. It was something else. Quieter. More intense. I didn't acknowledge it, but I felt my chest tighten, not out of discomfort, but a strange unfamiliar confusion. I hadn't been seen like that, really seen in years. Not by anyone. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long amber shadows across the driveway, I handed him a bottle of cold lemonade from the small fridge in the garage. We sat down on the dusty garage steps, the cool concrete, a welcome relief sweat glistening on our arms, a comfortable silence settling between us. "You did good today," I said, my voice soft. "Thank you." He looked down at his own hands, turning the cold bottle over and over. Then he looked back at me. "I like being around you, you know," he said, his voice quiet, sincere. "You don't treat me like a kid?" I smiled, unsure of what to say to that. "Well, you're not one anymore." He chuckled, a short, soft sound, but it faded quickly. "Sometimes," he said, his gaze dropping for a second before meeting mine again, his expression now serious, earnest. "Sometimes I think you forget how beautiful you are." That stopped me. My breath caught in my throat. I turned to face him fully, my mind struggling to process his words, unsure if I had heard him right. His expression was soft, not teasing. There was no sarcasm in his eyes, no boyish charm, just a raw, unnerving honesty. And suddenly my heart felt like it was remembering how to beat in a different, faster, and more dangerous rhythm. I stood up too quickly, brushing the dust from my shorts, a frantic, nervous gesture. I should probably start dinner." He nodded, standing up with me. "Right, yeah, thanks for the lemonade." He walked off slowly, glancing back just once over his shoulder, before disappearing down his own driveway. I closed the heavy garage door, my hands trembling just a little. Inside, I leaned against the cool kitchen counter, the air in the house feeling cooler now, but not enough to stop the strange new warmth that was rising under my skin. It was just a moment, a glance, a single sentence, but everything felt different. The next morning, I stood at my kitchen sink staring out the window with my coffee growing cold in my hand. The sun was filtering through the leaves of the old oak tree in my backyard, catching the dew on the grass like 1,000 tiny scattered diamonds. But all I could think about was what Josh had said. "Sometimes I think you forget how beautiful you are." The words echoed in my head like a melody I didn't ask to hear, but couldn't stop humming. I wasn't used to being looked at that way anymore. Not since my divorce 8 years ago. Since then, I had resigned myself to a life of quiet mornings, my weekly book club, and the garden shows on Sundays. A life that was safe, predictable, and completely, utterly uncomplicated. But yesterday, that quiet, orderly life had been stirred. Or maybe I had been woken up. I tried to go about my day as if nothing had changed. I swept the floors folded, the laundry watered the collection of succulents by the window. But every time I paused, I'd find myself thinking of his eyes, how sincere, how earnest they had looked in that golden afternoon light. It wasn't a game to him. That much I could tell. By late afternoon, I heard his father's old rumbling truck pull into their driveway next door. I peeked through the blinds just for a second, my heart giving a little foolish flutter. And there he was, Josh, shirtless, unloading something from the back of the truck. His body moved with that relaxed, easy confidence that young men seem to carry without even realizing it. His muscles flexed as he lifted a small cooler, and I quickly looked away, a hot flush of embarrassment creeping up my neck. This was absurd. I was old enough to be his mother, and I was his mother's friend. We went to the same church socials. We baked pies for the same school fundraisers. I had held him as a baby, for heaven's sake. Still, I found myself baking a second batch of banana bread that night, wrapping one of the warm loaves carefully in foil just in case. The next day, a Sunday, I saw him outside fiddling with a stubborn hedge trimmer. "You'll cut the cord if you're not careful," I called out from my porch, holding the warm, foil-wrapped loaf in both hands. He looked up and smiled, a flash of white in the morning sun. "I already did," he called back, "twice." I laughed, a real easy sound, and stepped down the porch steps. "Well, that's one way to learn." He met me halfway across my lawn, taking the bread with a grateful nod. "You didn't have to do this, Caroline." He used my first name. "Not Miss Carter. Caroline. I didn't have to," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "I wanted to." He held my gaze, that same quiet intensity back in his eyes again. "I liked yesterday," he said, his voice low. "A lot." There was a pause. A silence between us that wasn't awkward, just full of unspoken things of a new awareness. "I did too." I admitted, my voice a near whisper. He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, he just nodded slowly. "Want some help finishing the rest of the garage?" he asked. "We never made it to the back corner." I hesitated for just a beat, and then I smiled. "Sure, let me grab my gloves." Inside, my heart was thudding louder than I wanted to admit. We worked slower this time, more deliberately. The casual conversation of the day before drifted into more personal territory. He told me about his plans to go back to school for physical therapy, how he'd been working nights at a warehouse to save up money. I listened closely, surprised at how much he had grown, how much I'd missed while keeping my polite, neighborly distance. "You're not like most people," he said at one point, handing me an old dusty toolbox. "You really see things. You hear people." I looked at him then. Really looked. Maybe I've just had enough silence in my life to appreciate what's worth hearing. His lips curved into that quiet, devastating smile again. "That's what I mean." We were kneeling on the cool cement floor, sorting through a box of old books when our hands brushed. Just lightly. Just for a moment. But it sent a ripple through me that I couldn't ignore. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. The air felt different, then denser, heavier. I cleared my throat. I think that's enough for today." Josh just nodded, but he didn't move. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you lonely?" The question felt like a soft, gentle strike to the chest. Not because it was invasive, but because it was so spot on. I didn't answer right away. I looked down at my hands, then at his still resting so close to mine. "I think I stopped noticing," I said quietly. "Somewhere along the way I got used to being invisible." He reached for my hand, then not by accident this time, deliberately, and he held it. "You're anything but invisible, Caroline." For a long moment I let him hold it. I let myself feel it. The warmth, the closeness, the sudden shocking pulse of something I hadn't felt in years. Then I gently pulled my hand away. Not because I didn't want to stay, but because I needed time. Time to figure out what this was. What we were stepping into. "I should get dinner started," I said softly. He stood up and offered his hand to help me up. "Okay," he said, "but if you ever want company, even just to talk, I'm just next door." As he left, I stood in the middle of my half-clean garage, holding that strange new warmth in my chest like a secret. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew something significant already had. The following week passed in a strange new rhythm. It was quiet on the outside, but there was a storm raging inside of me. I kept myself busy. I trimmed the hedges with a vengeance. I reorganized the entire pantry. I even repainted the old peeling bench out back. But in the quiet moments over my morning coffee in the bath, in the long, silent moments before sleep, I kept replaying that question. "Are you lonely?" It had cracked something open in me, a door I had kept bolted shut for years. And once it was opened, I couldn't stop noticing how truly empty the house sounded at night. How long it had been since someone had really asked me how my day was. How long it had been since someone had touched my hand, not out of polite obligation, but because they wanted to. I hadn't seen Josh for days. I didn't expect to, not really. A part of me, the sensible, rational part, hoped that that moment in the garage had scared him off, had reminded him that I was a middle-aged woman who wore reading glasses and moisturized religiously to hide the undeniable truth of time. But on Friday evening, just as the sky was turning that soft, dusky shade of lavender that always reminds me of my own childhood summers, I heard a knock at my back door. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened it. Josh stood there holding a bottle of white wine and a plastic bag with 2 takeout containers. He looked a little nervous, as if he wasn't sure I would even answer the door. I didn't mean to intrude, he said, his voice a little hesitant. I figured dinner tastes better when someone else cooks it, and I owed you a proper thank you for the banana bread. I blinked, then smiled despite myself. That was days ago. Still the best thing I've eaten all week, he said, his grin returning. I stepped aside. You better come in before the mosquitoes carry you away. He walked in slowly, glancing around my kitchen like it was his first time seeing it. Maybe it was. I didn't usually let people in, not into my quiet, solitary space. But tonight, it felt okay. We sat at the small kitchen table by the window, opened the containers. Thai food my favorite, and poured 2 glasses of wine. The conversation came easily. He told me more about his childhood, the awkward, lonely years I had mostly missed while I was busy raising my own daughter and battling my own private heartbreak. I in turn told him things I hadn't said aloud in years. About the nights I lay awake, wondering if I was just waiting to grow old. About how sometimes I missed being needed. I get that. He said, his voice low and serious. I think people assume just because I'm young, I've got it all figured out. But I don't. I feel lost most days, just kind of drifting. There was a quiet between us then. Not awkward, just deeply, profoundly intimate. Like we were sharing something unspoken, something essential just beneath the words. As the night deepened, I stood up to clear the dishes. Josh followed, taking the plates from my hands, our bodies brushing against each other in the narrow space of my kitchen. I could feel the heat of him behind me. Gentle, present, electric. I turned to say anything to cut the building tension, but he was closer than I had expected. His voice was barely above a whisper. I keep thinking about that day in the garage. My throat tightened. So do I. His hand came up not to grab me, not to claim me, but to gently, tenderly move a stray strand of hair from my cheek. His touch was careful, reverent, as if he were afraid I might break, or disappear. You're not what I expected, Caroline, he said. Neither are you, I replied, my own voice a whisper. And then there was silence. Not an empty silence, but a charged, potent one. I should have stepped back. I should have made a joke, or moved away, or changed the subject. But I didn't. I just stood there breathing in the moment like I had been holding my breath for years, and when his lips brushed against mine softly, uncertainly, I let them. It wasn't an urgent or wild kiss. It was quiet, thoughtful, like a question. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I answered. When we parted, I didn't speak right away. I just studied his face. He looked so vulnerable in that moment, not like a confident young man, but like someone who was risking something real. This is complicated, I finally said. I know, he replied, but it doesn't feel wrong. And it didn't. Not in that moment. He didn't stay. I didn't ask him to. He kissed me once more, slower this time, a kiss that was deeper, more certain. And then he slipped out into the night with a quiet promise to call me the next day. I stood by the sink for a long time, staring out into the dark yard, my heart thudding a new, unfamiliar rhythm against my ribs, my fingers resting where his lips had just touched mine. Whatever this was, it had begun. The morning after I woke up early, the sunlight brushing across my sheets like it knew something had changed. And something had. I moved through my house in a strange fog of thought, everything feeling just a little softer, a little sharper too. I kept expecting to feel a wave of guilt or maybe shame, but instead I felt something else entirely. Alive. Still, the practical, sensible voice in my head, the one that had guided me for 53 years, was waiting to pounce. What are you doing? It whispered. This isn't sustainable. You're 53. He's in his 20s. People talk. People judge. This ends badly. It always ends badly. But I had lived by those cautious, fearful voices for years. I had let them keep me quiet, keep me alone, keep me safe. And I was so tired of being safe. Josh didn't call the next day or the day after that. I told myself not to read into it. He was young. Maybe he needed space. Maybe I had scared him. Maybe I had scared myself. By the fourth day, I had given up waiting and went about my usual routine laundry grocery shopping, stopping by the local library to return a novel I hadn't really finished reading. On my way back home, I saw his car in the driveway. He was outside tossing a duffel bag into the trunk of his car. My heart dropped into my stomach. I parked my own car and walked toward him, trying to keep my voice steady. "You heading out somewhere?" He turned quickly, startled, then ran a hand through his hair. "Hey, Caroline. Yeah, just for a few days. My uncle in Nashville's sick. My dad asked me to go down and help out." "Oh." I said, a strange mixture of relief and disappointment washing over me. "I thought maybe—" He stepped closer. No, this isn't about that night." He looked down, then back up at me, a seriousness in his eyes that caught me off guard. "I haven't stopped thinking about it, about you, but I didn't want to come back over until I knew what this really meant, to me and to you." My throat tightened. "I don't know what it means either," I admitted. "I just know it felt right and terrifying at the same time." He nodded. "Same here?" There was another silence between us. The kind I was starting to understand didn't need to be filled with noise, but it still left a weight on my chest. "You don't owe me anything, Josh," I said gently. "Whatever that moment was, it doesn't have to become something complicated. You have a whole life ahead of you." He smiled, and it wasn't his usual playful grin. It was sad, but also deeply grateful. "I don't see you as some detour, Caroline. I see you as someone who woke me up, someone who made me feel grounded again." Tears welled up behind my eyes before I could stop them. "Then go," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Go take care of your uncle. Go figure out who you are. Just don't forget where you felt seen." He stepped forward and pulled me into a hug. A real one. His arms wrapped tight around me with no hesitation. "I won't," he said, his voice a warm murmur near my ear. "You changed something in me, Caroline, even if this is all we ever were." And that was it. He drove away a few minutes later. I stood in my driveway, watching the dust settle behind his tires, my heart feeling full and hollow at the same time. Weeks passed. He texted a few times from Nashville. Simple updates about his uncle, photos of old record shops he'd found, even a video of a scruffy dog that reminded him of one I used to have. We didn't talk about us, and I think that was okay, because something had shifted in me too. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since before my divorce. I joined a yoga class and made new friends at the local co-op. I even went on a date with a nice man from my church. Nothing serious, just coffee and easy conversation. I wasn't chasing anything. I was simply awake again. One evening, I stood in my garage, which was now fully cleaned and organized. The space was quiet, peaceful, a little warmer than I remembered it. And I smiled, because I realized something I wish someone had told me years ago. Sometimes the most unexpected moments, the ones that break all the rules, that raise eyebrows and draw whispers, are the very ones that bring you back to yourself. That day in the garage, I thought I was clearing out the past. But what I was really doing was making room for something new. For someone else. For me.